All right, Shalom, Israel, Shalom. Want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Uh, just want to say Shalom to those who will tune in to this live. For those who will watch it following, Shalom to you, Shalom to y'all, all of your families, your households, man. Uh, I guess you could say Happy Passover for those who are celebrating Passover. This week or this weekend or in the coming days. Um, a Shar New Year to those who are having a new brew year coming up, beginning of the month of Abib. And for those who are still got a month to go, Lord's will, you have a strong finish to the end of the 2024 calendar year. But with that being said, this is Brother Isaiah coming at you with a Wisdom Wednesday. And today's title is Truth Be Told. Now, this is one of the few times that I feel like I'll get on live and it'll just be like a multitude of things that I want to speak on at once. Because if truth be told, sometimes you have different conversations throughout the week. And I just want to share with y'all some of the conversations biblically that I've been taking part of throughout the week, right? So first thing we'll do is what I'm going to do is pull up Psalms 119, right? And I'm gonna share my screen so y'all can see and follow along, with the scriptures that we bring out, right? So this is Psalms chapter 119, which is the longest chapter in the Bible. And we're going to start at verse number 100. And let's start at verse number 99. Matter of fact, all of this is really good. Let's start at verse number let's start at 97. All right. So this is Psalms 119, and let's start at 97, right? And let's read. It says, Oh, how love I thy law, right? So it says, Oh, how love I thy law. It is my meditation all the day. Through thy commandments hast made me wiser than mine enemies, for they are ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. Right? Let's keep reading. It says, I understand more than the ancients because I keep thy precepts. I have refrained my feet from every evil way that I might keep thy word. I have not departed from thy judgments, for thou hast taught me. How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Verse 104, it says, Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. Right? So it's through the Lord's precepts that we gain understanding. It's through the Lord's law. It's through the Lord's words that we get wisdom, that we're seen wise in the eyes of the people. How do we know that to be true? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy 4, right? Let me share this tab. And then let's read, and let's start at verse number 5, right? It says, Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Verse 6, Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people, right? So in the eyes of the nations, the laws and commandments, the testimonies of the Most High God were to make us wise, were to give us wisdom, were to make us seem knowledgeable as a knowledgeable people. The reason I started here in Psalms 119 is because I was having a conversation with, a friend of mine, that back in the day I considered like a brother. And it's not that I don't now, but it was just because of at that time, I used to go to this brother's house after school. This brother used to put me on game. We used to hoop together. This brother was big on trying to, get your boy to get in the gym. But it wasn't like necessarily he was a workout warrior, but he was a big dude himself. He lost a lot of weight playing basketball, and he used to try to get me to come to the court with him and stuff like that. Fast forward, since I've known this brother, he's like the average, Negro in America that has some biblical background. You grow up in church. Your mother, she's a heavy church influence. You got siblings who are heavy in the church. And that's kind of how the brother grew up. So in today's time, I want to say, since that the Lord has given me an opportunity to learn the law, statutes, and commandments, I would say that it is because I have kept the law, statutes, and commandments that I have gained a lot of wisdom and understanding about the word overall, the word of God overall. And the brother is still in church, which is, I'm not going to say a good thing, but also at the same time, which is kind of like a something you can work with kind of type thing, right? So the conversation that me and this brother had was pretty much about going to church, and one of the things the brother always quotes, and not directly, but I'm just going to use this precept just to kind of give him, I guess you could say, an opportunity to combat, combat what I say, right? So this is Zephaniah chapter 2, right? And so this is what Zephaniah told the people of the Lord. He says, gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired, right? Now, the reason I'm reading that is because, again, the brother is strong on going to church. And his standpoint is that you need to go to the church to get healing. You need to go to the church to get this. You need to go to the church to get that, right? What's another precept that I could use to support his claim? Faith come by hearing, right? Because somebody quoted this to me before too, Romans 10:17. And what does it say? So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, right? Again, all of these I guess you could say, are scriptures that I could use to support the brother's standpoint, right? Let's go to another one. Let's go to the book of Acts 8. I want to say it's in Acts 8. Let me go. Let me keep reading. Let's Acts 8:31, right? So, I want to start up for context. Let me start at verse number 24, right? Let me start at Acts 8:24, and I'm going to read to 31, right? Because 31 is the point, but I want to get context on what we're reading. So it says, then answered Simon and said, pray ye to the Lord for me, that none of these things which ye've spoken come upon me. And they, when they had testified and preached the word of the Lord, returned to Jerusalem and preached the gospel in many villages of the Samaritans. Verse 26, and the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, arise, and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert, right? Verse 27, and he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure and had come to Jerusalem for to worship, was returning and sitting in his chariot, read Esaias the prophet, which is Isaiah. Then the Spirit said unto Philip, go near and join thyself to this chariot. Verse 30. So and Philip ran thither to him and heard him read the prophet Esaias and said, understandest thou what thou readest? Verse 31. And he said, the Ethiopian man said, how can I except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. Right? So pretty much the point is, how can I except some man should guide me, right? The brother's point that I was speaking with, man, his whole premise is we have to go to the church to be able to understand the word, to be able to break down the word, to be able to further our relationship with the Most High God. One of the analogies he gave was, if you have a wife and a family, how can you truly say you have a relationship with your wife and family if you never go to your house? How can you truly say you love your wife if you never come home from being gone? You know what I'm saying? And I say this. It's a little, I understand what the brother is saying wholeheartedly. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think the brother truly understood my premise. And it wasn't an argument. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't no back and forth. It was me giving him, pretty much my position, my perspective on the topic, right? Because again, I'm all for people wanting to, I guess you could say, gather with people to do things that are different from the world. But the problem is when it comes to church, it's not necessarily different from the world. And I'll explain what I mean later on, right? But right now, what I'm saying is that ultimately it's like Romans 10, right? I'm going to read that first, and then we're going to get to the points that I kind of brought up to the brother to kind of show why I may understand, and I feel where you're coming from, but that's not necessarily biblical, in my opinion, right? And it's not my opinion, it's the opinion of the Bible, right? So this is Romans 10. Let's start at verse 1. It says, "Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge." And I'll read this verse 3. It says, "For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God." Right? So verses 2 and 3, a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge is the first point, right? What does Hosea 4 and 6 say? "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And because we have rejected knowledge, he would also reject us, seeing that we should be no priest unto him." Right? We are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And it is because people have the position that you must go to church as we know it today to be saved, to be healed, to have a relationship with the Lord, is very disingenuous to the multitude of people who during the time of Christ believed on him, but it doesn't really go into detail about them having a church home, right? What does it say in verse 3? "For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God." And to me, that's plain as day, because it's like this. If you don't really know something about the Bible, if you don't really understand the scriptures, a lot of times what you're going to do is you're going to lean on the understanding that man gave you about the Bible. You didn't really read it and come to that conclusion for yourself. You were taught what they wanted you to know. You were taught how to address this and address that. You didn't really read for yourself to understand, right? Which is why we started here, because what does Psalms 119, 104 say? "Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way." One of the false ways of serving the Lord, one of the ways that people can show that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge, one of the ways that people establish their own sense of righteousness is by going to Christian church as we know it today. I can say that emphatically because I was once in that brother's shoes. I was once in church 7 days a week. I was once somebody who believed that if you didn't go to church, you wasn't going to make it. If you didn't go to church, you didn't have a relationship with God. People that didn't go to church, in my eyes, I thought they were very wicked people, right? And that's because I was taught that as a child. I wasn't necessarily reading this in the scriptures and coming to the conclusion. So that's why we started here in Psalms 119, because again, "Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way," right? The only way you can have more understanding than the teachers that taught you is to actually go to the source material that they taught you from, and not go to the source material with their, I guess you could say, footnotes with their understanding in mind, but you have to go to it as a little child, right? Because again, you can't enter into the kingdom except ye be born again, and you got to come as a little child, right? Fast forwarding to the point. The point is that at the end of the day, we have a zeal. So I want to get into my retort to him. I kind of want to get into some of the things that I was explaining to him. While I agree that you should be gathering together with people to do righteous works, because what does Exodus say? Follow not a multitude to do evil. I agree that you should be fellowshipping together, right? Because we're commanded to do so all throughout the law, right? But I wanted to share my perspective with the brother. Again, Psalms 119 and 104 was one of my, I guess you could say, verses that I went to kind of explain what I meant. But my position is that when it comes to church, I don't recommend anyone go, right, unless your pastor is truly teaching you the truth of the Bible. And what I mean is, I can't speak for every church in the world because I haven't been to every church on the face of the earth. I don't know what every pastor teaches, what every reverend teaches. I don't know what every, minister teaches. The only thing I know is the churches that I have been to. And the only thing I can go base anyone's, I guess you could say, understanding off of, it's not because they go to church, it's through the conversations that we have. You got to examine first, then you got to rebuke. So I didn't come up with this understanding because the brother goes to church and I assume, and I'm gathering all churches into the same lump. What I'm doing is moving based on conversation that we had. What I'm doing is giving my opinion based on the information that was kind of, I guess you could say delivered between the both of us, right? So first point I want to go to is, well, I ain't gonna say point because the points are being made. Psalms 119, Romans 10. But what's one of the scriptures that I went to that I want to go to initially to just kind of say something? I should have pulled up the conversation again. Let me go to the book of John. Let's go John 4. Let's go John 4, right? Let's go to John 4. Because again, the title is Truth Be Told. And I'm just telling y'all, we'll go into one more conversation I had this week. It was a few of them, but all of them were good. I just want to elaborate on two of them. So the first one is, if you're just not tuning in, just resetting the stage, right? So pretty much we're talking about truth be told, man. And truth be told is you do not have to go to church as we know it to have a relationship with the Lord. And here's why, right? Let's go to John 4. Let me start at verse number. I want to start at verse 1, but let's start at verse 6, right? It says, John 4, this is John 4, starting at 6, right? It says, now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, and I'm reading it as written, Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Verse 7, there cometh the woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat, right? Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Verse 10, Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that said to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water, right? The woman said unto him, wait, before we keep reading, let's stop right there at verse 10. Let me read it again. It says, Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that said to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Right? Now, we all can understand that. Right there, the Lord is telling her, all you had to do was ask, and you could have received, that living water, that's talked about in John 7:38, when it says, he that believeth on me, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Right? You can liken living water unto understanding. You can liken the living water unto, I guess you could say, having, what is the proper word for it? I guess I'm gonna use understanding for layman's terms, right? So, for lack of a better word, the true understanding, right, of the words of the Lord, the prophecies, all of that. The lady could have received all of that had she knew she was talking to who the world calls Christ, right? That is my ultimate point right there, right? John 4:10 makes the point for me plain as day. You can clearly see they're at a well, and this is Christ talking to this woman, and they're not in church, right? They're at a well, they're drawing water. Well, she came to draw water. She has an encounter with Christ. Therefore, Christ told her, if you knew it was me, you could have asked me, and I would have gave you this living water. So I believe that the living water heals people. I believe that the living water makes people repent. I believe that the living water gives you a good understanding, right? Because that's just like it says in Psalms 111. It says, a good understanding have all they that keep his commandments. So I believe if the woman really knew she was having an encounter with Christ right then and there, if she would have been cognizant and had that sense of awareness, and she could have got that living water, that right there proves my point about why I feel the way I feel about church. Again, not from a standpoint of I don't think that people shouldn't gather together, but from the standpoint of I don't think people have to go to modern day church as we know it to be healed or to have an understanding, right? Because again, the reason we went to Acts 8 and it talks about the Ethiopian man reading the book of Esaias, right? Reading the scroll of Esaias, which is Isaiah the prophet. And then Philip has an encounter with him. And he asked the Ethiopian man, do you know what you're reading? And then the Ethiopian man responded, well, how can I except some man should guide me, right? And that's the position of the brother. He's pretty much on the wise of how would you know to truly break down God's word if you don't go to God's house? How would you truly know that you have a relationship with God if you never visit him? And he likened that scenario unto you having a family and you not coming home every night because, again, the whole premise of his point was to say that you got to go to God's house to know God. And I'm not necessarily against what he's saying. I'm against the understanding that he's associating with what he's saying. So essentially, I'm not against people going to the temple to worship, going to the temple to learn. I'm not against going to the temple to make sacrifices. I'm not against going to the temple to seek the elders, right? I'm not against any of that because that was a custom of old, right? That was a custom that we had when Solomon built the temple. It was the same thing in place when we had, I guess you could say, the tabernacle, right? It was the same thing that we had in place when we had the first temple and then the temple was rebuilt. But the thing is that, again, Romans 10, having a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. And because they left the righteousness of the Most High, we've established in the world their own righteousness about what should be taught in church, the doctrines that are associated with the text, in so much that, again, there have been historic councils and meetings and stuff added to the word and taken away from just due to the fact that people wanted to teach a doctrine. And these are the same people that added and took away from the word are the same people that set up, your modern day seminary schools, that set up your modern day churches, that teach you your doctrines, that give you your certificates, that call you certified, right? Because that's the word the brother used, that call you certified to teach the word of God. That's another problem that I have. People think that you have to be ordained through seminary school, take classes for it. You got to go through all this hoopla and pay all this money to receive biblical knowledge. But again, Psalms 119, 104. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. Right? I have more understanding than the ancients. Why? Because I went to seminary school? No. Oh, because I go to church? No. Oh, because I paid for an online Bible course? No. Oh, because I go to church every Sunday? No, it doesn't say that. It says, I have more understanding than the ancients because I keep thy precepts. And that's the thing that I think people overlook the most, right? That's the thing that I think people, when you have to support and teach a doctrine, you forget the foundations of the word, right? If you make the Bible your doctrine, you really have a lot of leg to stand on. Like nobody can ever gainsay or resist the word if you make the Bible your doctrine. And I think myself and the brothers Azrael and Denal, who are here with me in spirit, I really do think that we really try to do a good job of making the Bible our doctrine and not necessarily making a doctrine fit the Bible, right? Because if you make a doctrine fit the Bible, it's something that you're bringing from the outside, trying to graft it in back into the inside. And I'm not even going to say back into, because it was never a part of the foundation, right? I think we have a good understanding because just like Paul says, right? And well, not Paul, Lord, Luke 21 and 15, or is it 15 and 21? Let me try 15 and 21. Let me just see if that's the right one. Let me see. Nope, it's 21. Luke 21. Salakia. Or excuse me, right? Forgive me. My apologies. I don't know, bruh. I think I'm in the right book. I think I'm in the right book. Oh, here it go right here. 21 and 15. I'm tripping. Here we go. I went down to verse 21, right? So this is Luke chapter 21 and 15. Matter of fact, I'll read it in this version, the KJV, and I'll go and read it in like a simple or easy to read version, not the ERV specifically, but I'll do a different version just for those who may not truly understand what's being said right here through the mouth of Christ, right? But this says, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. So saying that to say, I really do think brothers, really try to do a good job of making the Bible our doctrine, which is why it's hard to truly combat a lot of the things. And I'm not saying we have 100% truth and understanding. What I'm saying is that we truly diligently try to hold each other accountable for what we say. We truly and diligently try to go through the scriptures to make sure what we're saying is biblically accurate, right? We have debates, we have conversations, we always arguing with each other about something. And that's something that our wives even kind of scoff at us about, not wickedly, have mercy on our women. I'm not saying our women are off for doing that. I'm saying they make jokes pretty much about us always arguing to some capacity about the scriptures, which is a good thing because, again, what does it say right here, right? It says, how sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth, right? What does it say in 97? Oh, how love I thy law. Oh, how love I thy law. It is my meditation all the day. So the brothers really try to meditate on these scriptures. And that's why when I read stuff like John 4 and 10 right here, when it says Christ told her if she knew who she was talking to, she could have asked of him and he would have gave her living water. That's why I say, he didn't say that if you would have asked of him and then you would have went to church, then you could have got living water. He didn't say if you would have asked of him and you went to seminary school, you would have gotten living water. He said, if you would have asked of him, he would have given thee living water. That's all he said. If you would have asked of him, he just would have gave it to you, you know? But let's keep reading in John 4, right? Because there's going to come a point that I want to elaborate on. It says, the woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Where are you going to get this living water from? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. Six, talking about the water of the well. If you drink of the water of the well, you're going to be thirsty again, right? But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. Again, church wasn't mentioned. Seminary school wasn't mentioned. Two things that the brother was kind of elaborating on, that the reasons why we should, because we may not understand and we got to go to the qualified teachers. And he was talking about those who went to school and learned the doctrine. And again, the doctrine may not be biblical. Just because someone is qualified to teach according to man doesn't mean the Most High set them up, right? Let's jump down, right? Let's jump down in verse 19, right? It says, the woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet, right? Verse 20, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship, right? Verse 21, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. This is the point I really elaborated on to the brother, right? Verses 19 through 21. Why? Because Christ literally says out of his own mouth, it's going to come a day where we're not arguing about worshiping in Samaria, worshiping in Jerusalem, right? Which one are you supposed to go to worship, right? It says the day, it's not going to matter about the location at a certain point. It's about worshiping him in spirit and in truth. Why do I say that? Literally verse 22. Literally verse 23, right? It says, but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him, right? The Father seeketh such, the true worshipers. He seeketh those who are willing to worship him in spirit and in truth. And that has no location attached to it. So when I talk to the brother, right, this is kind of the conclusion that I came to, reading John 4, because the brother Denal brought this out on the lesson like 2 months ago. And it really hit home, because sometimes we get caught up in arguing about which church to go to. This church is not like this church, and this church is not like this church. But really, if people would really stop trying to follow the righteousness that they established and go in the Bible and seek the Father's righteousness, they would understand location has no bearing on receiving that everlasting water. That living water, which leads to everlasting life, and that's kind of like my premise, right? And I don't have to go to a multitude of different scriptures, right? Because I went to Psalms 119 first. Through thy precepts, through his commandments, right? That's how we're going to get the understanding. That's how we're going to be able to have a doctrine that can't be gainsaid nor resisted against, right? Like it mentions right here in Luke 21, right? Why? Because again, it's the Bible. It's the text. It's the source material. And if you make the source material the basis for every doctrine that you subscribe to, then that means that you don't have to make a doctrine fit the Bible, because if the source material doesn't support it, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, then it's not something that you should be following. Again, let me go to Isaiah, because well did Isaiah prophesy, right? Let me go to Isaiah, right? What does it say right here? Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. Again, you got to come as a little child. You got to renew your mind. You got to be born again. You got to be a babe in this thing. You got to be weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. Why? It says, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So that's why I have the understanding that when it comes to going to churches we know it today, I'm not talking about a temple, right? I'm just talking about churches we know it today. I have to be specific because, again, I don't want anybody to have any ammunition to use my own words against me. And I'm not saying it for a debate sense. I'm saying it because I'm trying to be very articulate about my position in specific, right? It is my position that you don't have to go to church to know God, right? And I use that, I guess you could say, the pinnacle of the religion of Christianity, Christ, the figurehead of Christianity. I used his own words to support my understanding because Christ didn't say we had to go to seminary school. Christ didn't say we had to go to church, right? Christ said, if you would have asked me, right? Then the lady talked about worshiping at Samaria, and you say worship at Jerusalem. Christ even said, look, it's going to come a day where Samaria and Jerusalem don't even matter no more. Just like it says in Jeremiah 16, when it talks about one day we'll no longer talk about how the Lord brought us from the land of Egypt, right? That's why we literally keep the Passover, because we literally do this in remembrance of how the Lord passed over us, how the Lord sent the death angel. But when we followed his commandments and put the blood with the sheaf over the door, right, over the doorpost, the death angel passed over us. And then he brought us out that captivity with the mighty hand and the strong arm, right? So there's going to come a day where we don't even think about that no more, right? And that's the same thing Christ kind of alluded to with the woman. These locations kind of get people kind of like a little too overzealous in a sense, right? Some people have too much zeal for the wrong thing. Again, that's why I say it's no longer God's righteousness, it's self-righteousness, or the righteousness that man told you that you should be proud of. And that's why I agree with Christ, because if we asked of him, we wouldn't need to, I guess you could say, go to church, right? Because we sought him. We sought the precepts that his Father gave. And that's what gives us our understanding. That's what gives us, our wisdom. That's what helps us walk in the Spirit, right? Let me read this again. Let me read this in Romans 2, because this is another precept, right? Romans 2, and I'm gonna just pull up Romans 2. I'm gonna always try to keep it wide so that way I don't have to, click that button to switch, right? But what does it say right here, right? Romans 2 and 13. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. And the reason I read that is because a lot of times in today's church, people just go to church to hear. Me and the brothers was at camp talking about how people was going to get some church experience, right? But it's nothing but motivational speaking at the end of the day. And the reason I can truly and firmly say that is because, again, you shall know a man by his fruits. And I look at the fruits of certain churches. I'm not going to say every church, right? Certain churches. I look at the fruits of certain churches, and it's clear as day that while you have a zeal of God, it's not necessarily according to knowledge, right? You can go to church, cry. You can be what the world deems a great Christian man or woman, child, right? But that does not matter in the eyes of God. What matters in the eyes of God is if you're doing his law or not. Why do I say that? Why do I say that, right? Revelation 14 and 12, right? Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12, right? Let's read this. It says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, right? Listen, let me go get another one. Let me go to Ezekiel. Is it 12 or 13? Let me go to Ezekiel. Oh, Lord have mercy. Ezekiel 12, right? Ezekiel 12. Let's read this. Nope. It is 13. Oh, no, wait. I'm tripping. I'm talking about Ezekiel. Salakia, Lord. Ecclesiastes 12. I knew I wasn't tripping, right? Let's read this, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 12, one of Ezekiel. Lord have mercy. It says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man, right? Verse 14, for God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil, right? So this is why I take the position that I do when it comes to church, right? This is why I take the position, because in a lot of churches, the fruits of the labor are purely shown, that a lot of people have a zeal of God, but it's not according to knowledge. And you can see that through people's actions. They don't keep the commandments. They eat things forbidden that people of God shouldn't be eating. They don't look set apart in their attire, because, we have, attire requirements, right? There's certain things that we can't put on our bodies. There's certain things that we can't put in our stomach. There are certain days that we have to set apart and call it holy. If you consider yourself a holy Christian person, child, man, woman, right? If you consider yourself a great Christian man, woman, or child, whatever, but you're celebrating Christmas, but you're celebrating New Year's, you're congratulating and you're telling people, oh, you keep Ramadan, okay, that's okay, great. You're somebody that's not necessarily on the right track, right? You may have a mind for the Lord, but you don't really, you just don't got it yet. You don't got the answer, Sway. And that's why I feel the way I feel. Again, we don't have to go read 30,000 precepts. We don't got to go through 36 breakdowns and 50 scriptures. We can just go to John 4. We can just see what Christ said out his own mouth, and we can just let that be the source material that I base my answer off of, right? Shalom to the brothers. Shalom.
Shalom.
Right. Did y'all have anything to add? I don't even know how long y'all been on here, Salakia.
No, I just got on.
Oh.
But I've been listening though. It's been an edifying lesson for sure.
Khan.
Proceed.
I was gonna say, I've been listening too. I got on a little bit before Denal did. I don't really want to add a precept, but I do want to revisit a precept that you went to already.
Sure.
It's in Acts 8 and 31. The point I want to bring out is in verse 34, though.
Right. Acts 8, 30. Let me just keep it wide. Acts 8, 34.
Right. You can keep it like that.
So this is Acts 8 and 34. It says,
you started on verse 31 so they know where we at again.
Acts 8 and 31. And he said, how can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him.
Right. Now I'll jump to 34.
Verse 34. And the eunuch answered Philip and said, I pray thee, of whom speaketh the prophet this? Of himself or of some other man?
Right. So my point is this, right? What the brother Isaiah is saying is true in many aspects. Two more things to think about when you're thinking about the Christian church is this. Typically, majority of the time, you cannot do what the eunuch did with Philip. You can't ask questions in church. You can't raise your hand. If you raise your hand, people are going to look at you like you're being disrespectful. You can't ask if the pastor or the preacher or whoever, the guest speaker, whoever is preaching in church says something that you don't understand, you can't interrupt him and say, hey, what does this mean? Everybody's going to look at you like you're crazy or like, how dare you ask the question? Almost like if you're questioning God, right? And so the thing is this. To be guided or to be taught or to get a better understanding, you got to ask questions. And the Christian church, as we know it, right, is not the place for that. It's not the place for learning. Let's be honest. A lot of people leave church not having a better understanding of the Word of God. right? A lot of people leave church sometimes thinking confusion, right? And a lot of people leave church not even hearing what happened because of everything that's going on in the background, on the side of you, in front of you, behind you, right? You might be sleepy, right? It's not a productive state of mind. So off rip, that shows you right there that church is not needed for salvation. My second point is this. There are some countries that have banned the Bible and have banned gatherings, right? Now, if we if you know where you stand here in the Americas, right, started banning Bibles and banning churches and you could no longer go to church, does that mean that your way of salvation is null and void? Like you have no way of getting salvation now because you can't go to church? Nah. You're supposed to have it instilled in you. You're supposed to have the living water inside of you. You're supposed to be worshiping in spirit and truth without or with the church, right? If you put all your eggs in one basket, the moment they take your eggs away, right, or the moment they take the basket away, they take all your eggs with it, right? So you gotta be able to have the confidence that you can go to God in prayer and still get your answers, right, that you need when you have questions when you're reading the Bible or trying to get the truth. Because, prophecy states that church ain't always going to be there, right? Prophecy states that he don't dwell in a temple made with hands. Prophecy states that, hey, you got to have it in your heart because you got to endure to the end. You got to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, right? Your pastor's not going to do it for you. Your grandmother's not going to do it for you. Your mother or your father ain't going to do it for you. You got to do it, right? So you can go to church all you want to, but the moment they take church away from you because of prophecy, right? Are you going to be out of luck? Are you going to say, you know what? There's no way for me to know if this is right or wrong because I don't have church. I'm going to just sin anyway. God will understand. No, you got to put up a fight. You know what I'm saying? So don't put all your eggs in one basket, man. Being that a church building or a church service. Go ahead and dive into this living water for yourself. And if you drown, just know, hey, you got somebody there that can resuscitate you and bring you to life. And before you know it, you're going to be swimming. But I yield.
Con, man, because at the end of the day, and Acts 7 was the very first scripture the brother I quoted to the brother when I seen the topic or he asked me that question was Acts 7, right? We're going to go there real quick just to elaborate to show the people, what Acts 7, what wasn't Acts 7, y'all, prophecy that Brother Azrael talking about. Well, let's start at verse number let's start at 43, right? So just get context, right? So people can understand why did we go here in the first place. Acts 7. So the verses that I used was 48 through 49, really. But 43, we're starting at 43 to get the context. So let's read this. It says, yea, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Rephan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen, which also our fathers that came after brought in with Jesus into the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers unto the days of David, who found favor before God and desired to find a tabernacle for the God of Jacob, right? So let's read this in 47, right? It says, but Solomon built him an house, right? Verse 48, howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet, right? Heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is my place of rest? Have not my hand made all these things? Listen, this is the point that Brother Azrael was making. Heaven is his throne, earth is his footstool. What house can you build the Lord, right? And that's the point that I first made to the brother, right? Let's read verse 51. It says, ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. Ye do always resist the Holy Ghost, as your fathers did, so do ye, right? Or so do you, right? Saying that to say, again, when it comes to arguing over about which place of worship it is, should we even go to a place of worship now currently? My position is always going to be you do not need to go to church to have a relationship with God. You do not need to go to church to repent for your sins. You do not need to go to church in the day's time to be healed. If you want to go to church to link with like-minded people, go ahead and do your thing. Why do I say that? Is because if the brothers had a building, right, we would constantly go be in that building and we would invite people to that building so people could come and fellowship, come in and sup with us, come in and ask questions, come in and learn, right? Come in and just, again, kick it, fellowship. And we're not talking about turning a place that's supposed to be a place where people can come and learn into, I guess you could say, what's they call that? What we call that room that a man has, a man cave. We're not talking about turning it into a man cave, but what we're saying is that, again, people put too much spiritual, which isn't biblical. People put too much, I guess you could say, spiritual wisdom on something simple as a church building in today's time, which, again, you don't have to go there to be saved, right? I'm not against gathering and fellowshipping. What I'm against is teaching a doctrine that teaches people if you don't go to church, you're not going to make it. Or if you don't go to church, you're not going to have a relationship, which that in itself is a gimmick because the whole idea is to get people to come to church to grow your following. But in church, you're not really taught the doctrine that the Most High would rather have you to understand. That's why the man Christ told the woman of Samaria, if you would have known who you was encountering, you would have asked me and I would have given you this living water. He didn't say that she had to go to church. He didn't say, if you would have asked of me, I would have told you to come to the temple, and then in the temple, you can get this living water. No, he told her right then and there, right? And then he told her again, it's not about Jerusalem or Samaria in the future. That time is now. It's not about that. It's about worshiping the Most High God in spirit and in truth, right? And that's all that I had to hang my hat on. So even though this lesson was titled Truth Be Told, I wanted to go into another topic of discussion that I had with someone else. Nonetheless, right, I feel like, it was good for me to come to talk to y'all about maybe some of the conversation that I had, because maybe this is some of the conversation that you all have with friends, family. Maybe this is some of the conversations that you see on social media, or this is something that you may encounter at some point. I just want to offer you a perspective of looking at the Bible differently, looking at how to have a relationship with the Lord differently. Again, all you got to do is go to Christ, but you don't have to go to the church, because Christ didn't say go to church to know me. He didn't say go to the temple to know me. He just told people to ask. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, man, this had to be through the Spirit, because I literally was, in the I guess you could say in the works of just thinking up a lesson along the same lines, right? I think one is funny because you go to church, man, and the preacher or the pastor will always, try to guilt people and be like, it's between you and God. But when you go to meet your maker, he asks you why you didn't get up and go to church on that Sunday morning. You know what I'm saying? What you gonna say? As if, it's written in the Bible that if you don't go to church, God's gonna be angry with you. And I know the brothers did a phenomenal job displaying that. But I also wanted to just say, man, a lot of people, the number one question that we get when we go out on the street is, where do you guys fellowship at, or what church do you guys go to, or you guys got a building, right? And it's disheartening because it's almost as if our ministry counts for nothing if we don't have a building or if we don't have a church to go to. But I want to make it known and let it be known that we're just doing, we're being Christ-like minions. You know what I'm saying? I like it because Christ and the apostles, they didn't have a church home. You know what I'm saying? Wherever Christ was led, that's where he gave his sermons. What his famous sermon was called? The Sermon on the what? On the Mount. Oh, no, the sermon in the church. Nah, he used to speak out in places as he was traveling, right? It's the same thing that we do. And so for the brothers that do the same, that evangelize and go out, man, take no shame in what you do, and take no shame in telling folks, hey, look, man, we're 2 or 3 gathered, the Lord's in the midst. We don't need a building. This is our ministry. Why? Because you're doing the same thing Christ and the apostles did, right? And there should be no shame in that. Because Christ himself said, hey, man, people are going to Samaria for this, and people are going to Jerusalem for this, not even knowing that, hey, look, man, I'm really the temple they should be, paying homage to. You know what I'm saying? And so, and he was a nomad. He moved about. And so that's kind of what we do. Not even kind of, that's what we do. And for brothers out there, man, just to take confidence in doing that, and don't get caught up on getting that building. And because one thing you don't got to worry about is the stuff that comes with it, right? When you come get that building, now you got to worry about keeping the lights on. Now you got to worry about paying the rent, right? A leak happens, you got to worry about fixing that. When you a nomad like Christ, you think he had to worry about things going on like that? No, right? You keep it simple and clean. That way, all you have to do is focus on the mission at hand, right? And so I just want to encourage brothers to stay with that confidence of what you're doing if you're evangelizing, whether that be in this truth, or even if you're a brother that's evangelizing in Christianity, right? One thing I want to let you know is that you don't need man to validate you, like the brother Isaiah was going into. You don't need man to validate you. You don't need no certifications, but what you're doing is commendable, right? You presenting your body as a living sacrifice, being out and vulnerable, just like Christ was willing to teach anybody, right? 18 through 80, what's the saying? 18 through 80, crippled, healthy, or crazy, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But you out there, you making yourself a vessel for them, right? So I just encourage you guys to keep that confidence in what you're doing, and know that you're doing the same thing that Christ and the apostles did. But mighty lesson.
At the end of the day, man, hey, nothing, man's going to the Lord. So, like I said, man, this really just was a truth be told, right? Because if the truth be told, man, it's through the Lord's precepts that we get understanding, right? Not through seminary school. It's through the keeping of the commandments, right? And again, that's the only way that I could say it, because again, Deuteronomy 4 would affirm. And we know we have, again, that's why I say I have to be particular about what I'm actually saying, because again, we know we have the temple of old. We know that, men went in there to learn, right? Matter of fact, let me read that precept before we close out, right? Because ultimately, that's why I have to be so particular about what I'm saying, right? Nehemiah 8, right? Let me share this tab. Let's go to the book of Nehemiah, and let's go to the let's start at verse 1, and then I'll jump down to the points, right? So Nehemiah 8, starting at 1, it says, "And all the people gathered themselves together as one man into the street that was before the water gate. And they spake unto Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had commanded to Israel. And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women, and all that could hear with understanding, upon the first day of the 7th month. And he read therein before the street that was before the water gate, from the morning until midday, before the men and the women, and those that could understand, and the ears of all the people were attentive unto the book of the law." Fast forward to verse 8. "So they read in the book of the law of God distinctly, and gave the sense, and caused them to understand the reading," right? So again, sometimes you do need to be around people who could give you the sense of what you're reading, right? Sometimes you have to go with where the congregation is, and go get the sense of what's being understood. Like I said, I'm not against people gathering together, and I'm not against people going to someone to learn. What I am against is teaching that you have to go to church to receive salvation. You have to go to church to have a relationship with the Most High, which again is not true. Because the best way one could really learn is through reading the word, right? And I'll close with Revelation 1 and, well, let me read. Revelation 1. Revelation chapter 1, right? And I'll read verse 3. Revelation 1 and 3. And it says, blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand, right? So blessed is he that readeth, man. Because at the end of the day, through thy precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way, right? So with that, it's brother Isaiah, man, with the brothers Azrael and Lieutenant Dan saying, you know, Shalom, praise be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for another Wisdom Wednesday. Lord willing, this was edifying, and Most High willing, man, we'll be on here again. We try to do 2 videos a week, so Lord's will, we be here on live again on the Sabbath, Lord's willing, or maybe Friday night, depending on the spirit, you know, who knows. But at the end of the day, yeah, truth be told, some people have a zeal, but not according to knowledge. And you don't have to go to the churches we know it today to receive salvation. But with that, signing off, man, all praise, glory, and honor. Until next time, family, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.